Reality is fragile, layers of code, history and perception. But what happens when the seams split and your reality becomes something else entirely? Welcome to Glitch Reality. This is episode 14 out of 15, and I just want to say thank you all for staying through every single story in this unsettling corner of the world. No promos this week, we're just going to head straight into the story. A family, a fresh start, and a house that never truly let go. This is Whispers in the Floorboards. Grief has a strange way of hiding silence. Not in the cries or breaking of plates, but in the moments between. In the pauses of a house that's too quiet. In the way the air changes when something in the room, but isn't there. After my wife died, I told myself the best thing I could do for me and our kids was to start over. New place, new memories, a house in the countryside, far from any noise and any reminders. It was supposed to be peaceful, clean, simple. But the thing about silence is, it leaves space. Space for things to whisper. Things that were already here, already waiting. After we buried her, there was a stretch of silence. I just didn't know how to feel. Not just in the house, but in my kids, in myself. I thought moving would help. A new home, a quieter town, something simpler. I didn't realise silence is a place too, a hollow one. And sometimes, when you move into it, you find out the silence is already occupied. The house looks smaller in person. Funny how listings always made things seem bigger, brighter, newer. But this place, it was none of those things. It sat just past the tree line, crouched under a sagging roof, and layers of peeling paint. The wraparound porch leaned forward like it was trying to whisper something to the ground. There was no neighbours, no power lines, just fields, trees, and a heavy quiet clinging to odd places. I told myself it had character, charm even. That's what you say when you're trying to convince two grieving kids that this sagging skeleton of wood and rust is where it starts healing. Ellie, who was 7, clutched her stuffed bunny with one hand and my hoodie sleeve with the other. Her eyes were wide, but blank. She wasn't scared of the house. She was scared of anything new, anything that wasn't her mum. Sam was 10 and already knew too much for his age. He stood behind the car, arms crossed, watching the house like it was a lunge at us. He hadn't said more than 5 words since we left the city, and honestly, I don't blame him. Inside the house smelled like damp wood and old air, the kind of smell that had been soaked into walls for decades. The floorboards groaned under every step, long and drawn out, like something beneath them was waking up after a very long sleep. I let the kids pick their rooms. Ellie chose the one with yellow wallpaper and the window that overlooked trees. She said they looked like they were waving at her. I laughed, but it didn't feel funny. Sam chose the one at the end of the hall, furthest from everyone, said nothing, dropped his backpack and shut the door. I took the master bedroom, not because I wanted it, but because someone had to. It was cold and plain, an old radiator that clicked every few minutes like it was trying to speak in Morse code. We unpacked in silence. I kept trying to talk to fill the air, but the house didn't want noise. It swallowed, smothered it. Even the kids' footsteps sounded muffled upstairs, like the wood didn't want to remember them. That night, after the kids had gone to bed, I sat at the edge of mine, staring at the floor, listening. It was quiet at first, just usual, wind against windows, distant pipes banging. But then there was something else. A whisper so soft I wasn't sure if I'd heard it at all. It came from beneath the floorboards, like something was lying under the bed, breathing words into the wood. I froze. Not just out of fear. Not yet. It was a kind of stillness your body enters when you don't trust what your ears just told you. I stared down at the hardwood. It didn't move. Nothing creaked. Nothing spoke. So I stood up, touched the radiator, checked the windows, told myself it was the pipes. the wind, the pressure changing. And when I finally laid down, heart still pounding, I repeated the only thing I could have left to say to myself in the dark. It's just the house settling. It started with Ellie's voice. Not a scream, not a cry, just a whisper from down the hall. Carried on the same still air that lingered in the mornings. I heard her talking before the sun even came up. Soft and careful, like she didn't want to wake anyone. I stepped into the hallway. A door was cracked open, just enough for a sliver of light to spill out. The wallpaper in that room, once cheery, had begun to curl at the edges. It made the walls look like they were peeling away from the world. She was just sitting cross-legged on the floor, in front of a loose board near her bed. A bunny tucked under one arm, her head tilted to the other, like she was listening. "Ellie?" I said. She didn't turn. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" She looked up at me, like I was interrupting something. Not angry, just disappointed.
"She's sad,"
Ellie whispers. She said
she used to have a little girl like me.
The room didn't feel cold, but something had now moved in the air. Not a breeze, a pressure, like the house had taken a breath. I knelt down beside her, doing my best to stay calm. "Who said Ellie?" She pointed to the floor. The seam between the planks where dust and splinters gathered, like a tired eye.
"The lady. She's under there."
I touched the board, looser than I remember. I'd been meaning to fix it, but hadn't got around to it yet. It shifted under my palm. I smiled, because what else am I supposed to do? And told Ellie it was probably just a dream, the lady wasn't real. So she looked up at me, serious in the way that a child can be.
"Then why did she say your name?"
I stood up quickly, told her it was time for breakfast. She didn't argue, but as we walked downstairs, she looked back at the floor one more time. Over breakfast, I asked her more about the lady, who she was, what she looked like, but Ellie just shrugged.
"She's blurry. Like the windows when it rains."
Sam sat across from her, listening but silent. He didn't eat, just pushed the cereal around with a spoon. Then under his breath, he muttered,
"You shouldn't talk to her."
Ellie blinked.
"Why not?"
"Because she's not real."
He said in a sharp, defenseful. But I could see it in his eyes. He didn't believe it either. Later that day, Sam came to me. Ellie was in the backyard, digging in the dirt. He looked pale, hands clenched into fists. He told me she was talking to the floor again. Said he had heard her whispering just after midnight, having conversations, full ones, laughing even. And then he swore to me that he heard another voice. It said my name, he told me.
"But it wasn't her voice, Dad."
It was slow, like someone remembering how to talk. I wanted to tell him he was just imagining it, that he was tired, that he was scared, because his mum was gone and this place was old and creaky and full of weird shadows. But I didn't. Because I'd heard the whisper too, and because when I went back to Ellie's room that night, just to check, I found something new. A drawing. Crayons on notebook paper, folded and placed gently under the edges of the same floorboard. It's a picture of our living room. The three of us on the couch. Me, Ellie, and Sam. But there was a fourth figure. No face, no hands. Just a long, black shape standing behind us, watching. Ellie's drawings changed that week. They used to be simple sunshine, trees, crooked houses, but now they had perspective, depth, and shadow. One morning, I found her in the living room, sitting cross-legged in front of the coffee table, surrounded by scraps of paper. She didn't notice me right away. She was drawing with absolute focus, her hand moving in slow, deliberate strokes. This picture was of her bedroom. Not as it was, but as it had been before the move, the layout, the exact same paint pattern, even the chipped corner of her old dresser. But the walls, they were covered in eyes, hundreds of them, watching from every surface. I asked her about it. She looked up at me, almost surprised to see me.
You wants to remember it.
Who?
The lady. She doesn't like this house. It's too small.
Later that night, I found another drawing. This one wasn't left out in the open. It had been slipped under my bedroom door. A rough sketch of me asleep. The details were crude, but unmistakable. My face, my bed, the blanket pulled up to my shoulders, and there it was, in the corner of the room. A figure crouched behind the dresser, just a black shape, watching me. So I checked Ellie's room. She was asleep, peacefully. The sketch pad on her desk, pages torn and folded. I wanted to believe it was just imagination, her way of coping. But the drawings didn't feel like make-believe. They felt like documentation. Sam didn't sleep that night. I heard him pacing. At some point, he came into my room, barefoot and trembling. He said he saw Ellie standing at the window in the middle of the night. She said she wasn't moving, just standing, humming to herself, while the wind blew against the trees.
She's talking to her again. But it's not under the floorboards anymore.
That sentence stuck with me. The way he said it, not scared, but certain, like it wasn't a fact. It wasn't fear. This was something he believed. The next morning, I asked Ellie about the window. She just smiled.
That the trees were teaching her songs.
And that they told her stories about the house and who used to live here. I pressed on, asked what kind of stories. Her smile faded. She looked up at me and said,
They weren't all nice people, Daddy. Some wasn't stayed too long. Some never left.
That afternoon, I found her sitting on the stairs, whispering to the floors again. The same board, the same hand pressed flat against it. It was like she was feeling for something underneath. I called her name. She turned around slowly, and she said,
She's under the hallway now. She's learning where we'll sleep.
I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark and listened. The floor groaned once every few minutes, like someone shifting their weight slowly, deliberately, not walking, but exploring. At 3:17, the hallway light flickered on. Then again, and then I heard a giggle. Not Ellie, not Sam's. Smaller, higher, closer. I walked into the hallway, flashlight in hand, and nothing. The doors were closed. The floor was cold under my bare feet. And then I saw a new drawing. Pinned to the wall outside Ellie's room, black crayon, an overhead view of the house, perfectly proportioned, our room, the stairs, the living room, and a new addition beneath it all. A second house, an inverse, same layout, same rooms, but in red. In the second house, Ellie's figure was circled, beneath her the word, stay. Found Sam in the hallway with a hammer. It was just after 1 a.m. He was kneeling outside Ellie's door, sweat on his forehead, hands trembling, and he had lined up the nails. He didn't even look at me when I called his name. Sam! Sam!
I have to keep it in.
He muttered to himself.
It's moving now. It's not just under her room anymore.
I stepped forward and took the hammer from him gently. His eyes were wild, not panicked, but alert, like a boy watching the edge of a forest, waiting for something to step out. Sam, what do you see? He wiped his face with the sleeve of his hoodie. His voice dropped to a whisper.
I saw Ellie hooking to it again. But this time, it wasn't under the floor. It was standing next to her bed. I saw his hand on her shoulder.
I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just stood there, staring at my son in this dark hallway, wondering how much was imagination and how much was inherited. He looked up at me, tears brimming down.
It looked at me, Dad. I swear it did. I thought I was dreaming, but I wasn't. It turned his head to me and smiled. No face. Just teeth.
I told him, go back to bed, promised I'd check on Ellie, promised things would be okay in the end. Inside her room, she was fast asleep, but one hand curled beneath her pillow, the other resting beside the floorboards, just barely touching it. It wasn't for a long time, just watching, just waiting for something to move, to twitch, to breathe wrong. The next morning, Sam didn't come downstairs. Ellie sat at the table, spoon dry, putting cereal into her mouth and humming to herself quietly. She wasn't drawing, just humming. I asked her if she remembered anything from the night before. She shrugged.
I was talking to her, but I guess I fell asleep.
Did she say anything new? Ellie paused. Her spoon now stopped moving.
She said Sam is scared. Says it makes her feel lonely when people are scared of her.
Something inside me flinched, like hearing someone call your name from a dark room. Then I found a new drawing that day, tucked under my pillow. Ellie had denied putting it there, but I didn't press her. It was the hallway, drawn from a straight angle, like above. All of the bedroom doors were closed, all but one. Ellie's door. In the centre of the hall was a single nail, bent, like someone had tried to hold onto it. Someone had tried to hammer it, but missed. That night, I woke up to a whisper. Not from a hallway, but from under my bed. It was inside my room, close, just by my ear. I sat up fast. The room was empty. The window was closed. The lights were off, but I swear the air was warm, like someone had been standing there just a moment before. I walked the house in silence, flashlight in my hand. My chest had felt tight, my skin too thin. I stepped outside Sam's door, and that's when I saw it. A handprint, small, on the hallway, right at a child's height, smudged in black, not soot, not ink, but something darker, something oily. Next to it, drawn in crayon, Ellie's handwriting, just one word looped over and over and over until the paper tore. Mine. I stopped trying to explain it all away. The house, the whispers, the drawings. These weren't accidents. These weren't grief. Something was here, and something had chosen Ellie. She was drifting, not in a tantrum-throwing, screaming sort of way, but quiet, unbothered, but calm. I did not recognise. She no longer knocked before entering rooms. She stood too still when she thought we weren't looking. Sometimes she just stared at the ceiling like it was talking to her. I told myself I would fix this, that I just needed more sleep, more clarity. Clarity isn't a luxury you can afford when your house is breathing beneath your feet. Sam didn't trust her anymore. He started sleeping with a flashlight and his baseball bat. I caught him one morning checking under his bed, then the floorboards, then his closet. He looked up at me and said,
She's not drawing anymore.
But the drawings still kept showing up. He showed me one tucked inside his dresser drawers. A drawing of me, standing in the hallway, staring at a floorboard that had been pried open. From it, a long thin arm was reaching through. So I decided I'm going to look around the house a bit more, look for some answers. I went looking, and I thought maybe, just maybe, there was something here before us, a pattern, a warning. So I started looking in the attic. I found an old wooden box behind some insulation, buried under years of dust. Inside, photos, black and white, mostly faded beyond recognition, but one really stuck out. A young girl, maybe 8, pale, barefoot, sitting at the top of the stairs, holding the doll that looked exactly the same as Ellie's bunny. The caption at the back read, Emily, 1949, gone too soon. Beside it, a journal, water damaged. Most of the pages were unreadable, but a few survived. One dated 1948, written in a looping, careful script.
She talks to the floor again. She says there's a friend who listens. Told me not to step on the hallway boards after dark. Mother says it's the house's memory. Father says it's mold. But I can hear them too now, scratching, like something's trying to learn to grow.
Last entry.
I told her to stop talking about it. She cried all night. In the morning, she was gone. I even heard her say goodbye through the floor.
That night, I sat outside Ellie's room, and I waited. I didn't sleep. I didn't blink. I just waited. Around 2 a.m, I heard the boards groan. Just once. And then, something slid underneath them, like cloth dragging across wood. I stood, pressed my ear to the floor. Nothing at first. But then scraping, rhythmic breathing, and soft but wrong sounds, like lungs that I'd never learnt how to do it right. I reached down and pinned my ear to the floor, and then I decided. I pried the floorboard open, and it came loose far too easy. But beneath it, just blackness. No insulation, no framing. Just an opening that shouldn't have been there. I shone my flashlight down the gap. It didn't reach to the bottom. I didn't know how deep it went, but what I saw just before the beam gave out was a drawing, folded and slightly torn. I pulled it up. It was Ellie, laying on her bedroom floor, eyes closed, a dark figure hovering over her, its face low, near to hers, whispering something directly into her ear, one written in red, over and over and over again. Stay. The rain started at midnight, thin at first, gentle, but the weight behind it, it was like it was waiting for something. Ellie sat by the window, just watching, barefoot, motionless. The light from the storm flashed across her face and made her eyes look way too deep. Like her skin was just a shell stretched over something else. She hadn't spoken to me all day. When I was asking her how she was feeling, she said, nothing. When I asked her what she was drawing, she looked up at me and said,
Not for you.
That was the moment I stopped being a father in this house, and I was just a guest. And she was the voice it had chosen. Sam's room was a disaster. Blankets were nailed over windows, closets emptied out, salt lines poured in lines across the floor. I didn't even know where he had learnt that. He stood in the middle of it, holding a flashlight like a weapon.
She's letting it in. You know that, right? She talks to it now, like it's a friend.
I tried to calm him, told him it was just stress, grief, trauma, anything. He cut me off.
Dad, there's a voice in the vents. It said my name twice and it laughed.
I couldn't deny it anymore, so I didn't. I told him, stay in his room, no matter what he hears, no matter who calls, do not come out. Later that night, I woke up and I couldn't move. My eyes were open, but my body was numb. Cold pressure held me down, not heavy, just absolute. At the foot of my bed, I saw her. Not Ellie, her. A silhouette, slight, childlike in size, but not in shape. She leaned forward, tilting her head too far, watching me with no eyes, no face. Just suggestion. Her hand crept onto my blanket, long fingers twitching with static energy. And then she whispered,
You shouldn't have opened the floor.
The room stretched, the walls twisted, and then it all went away, like something had yanked the tape from the reel. I woke up, standing in the living room. No memory of how I got there. My feet were muddy, my shirt was damp, and Ellie was sitting at the table, calmly eating cereal. She didn't look surprised to see me.
She gave you back.
Not even looking up.
She doesn't always do that.
I asked her what she meant. Her answer chilled me more than anything I had heard in that house.
She wanted to keep you. But you were too loud inside. You wouldn't stop fighting.
I went back up to the attic and I tore through the attic again, looking for anything. Something I'd missed, something I didn't know. I was searching for something I didn't know about until I found it. Behind the old insulation, nailed between two beams, was a page. Just one, ripped from that journal. Still legible, but just a sentence.
If she speaks your name while you sleep, you've already been taken.
Ellie drew a new picture that night. It was of the attic, but not as it was. It was clean, bright, organised. In the centre of the room, a circle of children stood, holding hands. All of them drawn in grey. All of them eyeless. And above them, floating like a puppet with invisible strings, was Ellie, smiling. She gave him back, but just barely. The question that lingers isn't whether the house is haunted, but it's who really lives there now. That was episode 14 of Glitch Reality. Just one more to go before season 1 closes. And next week is a special one. It's the finale, but it is my user-submitted stories. You wrote them, I read them, and now the house will whisper to them for life. If you enjoyed the ride so far, please consider supporting Glitch Reality on Patreon. Massive thank you to everyone that has supported me so far. You help keep the lights off. And don't forget to dive into even deeper ones, into the worlds of the comics on Webtoons and GlobalComix, the visual nightmares frame by frame. Until next time, keep an eye on that glitch, because sometimes the glitch is truth.